you guys. All right. So oftentimes we like to complicate things, right? So you try to make them a little bit more difficult than sometimes they really need to be. And today's topic is really no different when it comes to that. So I'm going to be sharing with you guys how can we uncomplicate live streaming so that you can get more people watching you, learning about your online tutoring business, and tuning in to hear what you have to say. So keep watching. All right. Well, I want to welcome you guys to Become an Online Tutor, where you guys can learn how to ditch those big tutoring companies and keep more of the profit for yourself. And each week, you are going to be able to get free content right here, where I personally share content that relates to your online tutoring business. And today, I've invited Sam Dimercurio, our tech guy at the Online Tutor Coach, to share 4 simple steps to a successful live streaming strategy to get online tutoring students. But first, I want to see who we have in the chat. We've got Beth in the chat. Woot woot! I love it. And Maria. Beth and Maria are in the house. I love it. I love when you guys come on in and you guys have already started to say that you like the new countdown that we have. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. We're always learning. Here's the thing when it comes to live streaming, we always have to be open to learning how to do new things. And that's really going to help you. You don't have to start off like with all of the high tech stuff when you're getting started. You just continue to put yourself in a place where you're open to learning. So I want to know, have you guys gone live? And if so, how many times have you gone live? All right, you guys. So I've got something cool here. It is, we're going to put it up. Da-da-da-da. We've got an overlay. Of course, I got to work on it, so that's okay. We got a little bit of work left to do on it. In fact, I almost feel like I can show you guys how I can mess up and be live and that it's okay. So I'm going to just do this. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. We're going to go like...
I can see it now. The delay was killing me here. I was like, I want to see it. Yep. It's great because with Zoom, you just gotta, resize. With OBS, you'll want to lock the overlay once you get it set where you want it.
Yeah. Because we're kind of different. We got different. I want to make sure that you can see Sam's face, because Sam's kind of like hiding over there. All right, so we're going to do this. And now we're going to do this. Yeah, we'll work on it. Yeah, nobody's going to be perfect when they start learning these tools, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the big thing. We'll do this. Ooh. 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 Oh, oh. See? You guys get to watch me futz with it. And you know what? It's okay, because as time goes on, I'm going to keep getting better. Oh. And so are you. So if I can screw up live on in front of the world, you can too. So let's see how many people have said how many times they have gone live. We've got Maria has done live on Facebook Live and with Zoom. Awesome. Ramona, not yet, but she is working on it. And Beth has gone live twice, and she's going to be going live again soon. So very cool. I just want to say, hey, thanks you guys for being here and joining us. It's really awesome when we can be able to connect this way. And so today I have invited Sam Dimercurio, who's joining us, as I mentioned. He is our tech guy here at the Online Tutor Coach. Now, Sam is Ashley's husband, Ashley Dimercurio, who's a reading tutor. And she joined our community about, I want to say like 2 years ago, when she was transitioning from working for a Chinese ESL tutoring company. And Sam's been helping her with the tech, and now he's our tech guy. So what are some of the things, Sam, that Ashley and Victoria struggled with when they began live streaming?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, before I get into that, I just want to say I'm very proud of you. You've got this like awesome setup going on here. You had a countdown, you had a transition, you got the overlay. That's cool. I like it. I dig it. So that's awesome. And guys, this is the kind of thing that we're going to be talking about here and in the future, is how you can progress from, in the beginning when it was just straight up like Google Hangouts to now a very polished, cool looking thing, right? It's awesome. And so to actually answer the question, some of the things that Ashley and Victoria were struggling with in the beginning was honestly trying to figure out how to do something like a joint video call, stream it in a way to their Facebook page that that was simple but also looked good. And I think the first couple of times they might have just done it through Zoom directly, and that was okay. But what I quickly did was I said, look, you can very easily use OBS to have like a little overlay, have yourself in there, and it will just create a better looking presentation for your audience. And the big thing for them was that they were switching off each week between Ashley's YouTube, or not YouTube, Facebook, and Victoria's Facebook page. And so what that meant was, on the weeks when we weren't running it, Victoria was having to manage OBS and manage all of that stuff. And, in the beginning, she didn't necessarily put in the overlays. She didn't necessarily use OBS. But over time, as I talked to her and as I worked with her on how to make it, they had a uniform presentation that they were able to figure out on both sides how to make it work. So I think for them, it was just figuring out the tech that was allowing them to create the type of experience that they wanted to create for their audience. Mm-hmm. That was the big thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, honestly, just like turning on live and going live, there's nothing really like super difficult about how to go live. But then, like, what do you do when you're actually live? Now, you guys, live streaming is super important because it's going to allow you to be able to connect with people on a whole different playing field. No longer are people going to be basing you and your tutoring off of your price and comparing you to other people. They're going to be like, wow, like this person really stands out of my mind as somebody who really knows what they're talking about. They're going to hire you because you seem like you are an expert. Okay. Now, I'm not saying if you're not an expert, not to like put yourself out there and not be an expert, but it really is going to separate you from all these other tutors that are out there. Now, most tutors, they're not going to take advantage of this. You know what? It is a lot easier to put your name on some lists and go to Ysant or tutors.com and just put your name on there and just like hope that people will find you. But this puts a little bit more of the game in your hands. Now, at this point, you probably have tried a lot of different strategies to be able to get students, right? You probably have tried tutors.com, Ysant, flyers, maybe even applied to work for like different companies like Preply or different places like that. And while these strategies might be great in the beginning, eventually you're going to want some kind of content that people can find over and over again that are going to allow people to find you instead of you finding them. Okay. So once you get in the habit of live streaming and you can like say, okay, on this day at this time, I'm going to be live streaming. You can put it as part of your everyday schedule. Everything becomes a lot easier. Now, you guys, this video is currently being sponsored by the Online Tutor Coach, where we have coaches that guide you step by step in setting up your online tutoring business. We help you get found, help you get hired, referred, so that you guys can do what you love and spend less time on running and managing your business. You can spend your time doing your tutoring. And next week, Sam is going to be doing a webinar. So stay tuned, you guys. I'm going to be giving you a link to that. I'll put it in the description after the call is done today. But we will give you a link to that. So if you're interested in signing up so that you can stay up to date on when that is, I will give you a link to that so that you can join us and continue to learn more about live streaming, you guys. All right, so we've got bullet number 1. Sam, you're going to be impressed here. You're going to be impressed. You're going to like this. He's going to like this, you guys.
When you're live streaming, a lot of the time people get really, really worried. Oh, yep, it just updated on my screen. That's amazing. People get worried about, oh God, what am I going to say? What if people think I'm an idiot? What if I stutter and I sound bad? Like, it doesn't matter what, especially in this business, when you're live streaming, what's going to differentiate you from the big tutoring companies and from every other tutor out there is your personality, right? And so you don't want to get on a live stream and put on a fake persona that isn't who you really are. Now, that can be okay if you're doing entertainment type live streams, but it's not what you want to do for this type of live stream, because the goal here is to show your prospective client who you are, what type of experience they might be getting. Now, this works especially well, of course, with if you're tutoring, say, elementary school students, or you're in a situation where it's going to be the parent that's actually going to make the decision whether to hire you or not. What live streaming does is allow you to connect with them and say, wow, this person has a personality that I like. They have a good energy. They seem like they know what they're talking about. I think they would be really great to work with, right? But it'll work with any clients as well. I mean, if they can see your face and hear your voice and they connect with you, what that's going to do is that's going to say, I want to work with that person. And then they will think about price, versus what Joanne said earlier. They're not going to immediately say, well, what do you charge?
Right.
But if you come across as false, if you're trying to put on some kind of persona, people will see through that immediately. And so you just be yourself. You be who you are. You get on, you do your live stream. And if you feel like there are areas where you can improve, sometimes it's just as simple as, increasing the pace at which you speak, or the volume with which you speak, or you can move your hands around, right? Like, whatever, just to be expressive and to connect with your audience. There are ways that you can improve on that while remaining authentic.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's going to be huge at the your authenticity is what people care about the most. Now, what about when like people don't like who you are and they're mean on social media?
That happens. Like, the thing about putting yourself out there on social media is that you will at some point run into what we call trolls, right? And sometimes they won't even be trolls. Sometimes they just genuinely don't like you. That is what it is. That's like that in any social situation that you're in. Now, online, it can be a little bit frustrating because sometimes they're anonymous. Sometimes they're there just to kind of ruin your day. And you just have to shrug it off. You just have to say, this person doesn't like me. I can't do anything about that, and I'm not going to worry about it. But you can also look at the words that they're saying and see if there is anything that you can glean that might be a little bit true and that you might be able to improve on, right?
Right.
Because constructive criticism can be helpful. If they're just straight up being mean, then ignore it.
Exactly. And here's I kind of follow this rule for myself. Like, okay, if only one person says it, it may or may not be true. If two people say it, it may not be true. But if three or more people are kind of saying the same thing, then you got to kind of take a hard look at that and probably listen to that to make yourself better. So earlier, Ramona said, "Hey, like Sam's not really centered with your screen in there," and I was like, "All right, you know what? We're going to work on coming up with a better size, and right now I'm just going to delete it. I'm going to like get rid of it right now, and let's just focus on making sure that this looks like a good live stream versus get all hung up with the technology, right? Like,
Yeah.
We didn't have a chance to get together ahead of time, and so you're just playing with the different things, and it's like, hey, let's try it. And Ramona's like, you know what, that didn't go so well. And that's constructive feedback, right? She's not being mean. So there is a difference between, like, you also have to be able to tell the difference between constructive feedback that's helpful and then people that are just mean and rude.
Yeah.
You'll definitely be able to tell the difference. And when you get out there, when you put yourself out there, you have to be open to that and not take it personally, okay? And I say that with like the biggest heart, you guys, because I get it all the time. I get people who say like, I don't like your headsets. I get people who
Yeah.
say things like, I've had people say things like, you know, your eyebrows look like they're disappearing. Are you sick? And it's like, well, yeah, like I've gotten old and my eyebrows have started to disappear. Like, and I don't really wear a lot of makeup. So
Right.
it's like these little things that people say that you're just like,
Mhm.
okay, is that going to, at the end of the day, stop me from getting my voice heard by the
Right.
people that were meant to hear me so that I can help the kids and the tutors that I was meant to serve?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that's a great example. And I actually had a video. This was not a live stream, it was one that we recorded, but it's the same advice, right? Where I created a video about how to do a group Discord call. And Discord, for anybody that doesn't know, is it's kind of like a server where you can have people either come in voice chat or video. And at the time, they had just introduced their video service. And so I was going through and doing this thing, right? And now, of course, it's blowing up because everybody wants to know how you do video conferencing with groups. And so, but I've been getting a ton of comments saying, like this was a waste of time, or, the intro was too long, or you could have summed this up in whatever. And a lot of the comments were legit. A lot of, because at the time I didn't know as much and I wasn't as good at creating videos as I am now. So, but now people are seeing them. And so I look back on it and I'm like, ooh, yeah. Yeah, you're right. And I would say that in the comments. I would be like, you're right. I wouldn't respond to the people necessarily that were really mean, but if they were like, oh, this was a waste of time, I might go in and say, hey, I'm really sorry that you felt that way. We're always trying to get better and learn and grow, right? But you can't
Yeah.
take it personally because it your self-worth is not based on somebody's comment on a live stream or on a YouTube video. It
Mm-hmm.
just isn't.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think that's super important. So do you guys have, when it comes to being yourself, anybody have any like doubts or concerns like about being yourself? Like I know that some people like they worry about like, well, what they look like, or they're like, uh, they'll say things like, well, Joanne, I don't look like you. And it's like, no, you don't look like me because you're you. And some people like the way they look and some people don't like the way that I look. So, you know, stop worrying about like what you look like. Do your best to like up your appearance the best that you can, but don't spend all of your time like worrying about what you look like. Spend more of your time on really getting your message out there so that you can be heard. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, the thing is that ultimately, I think a lot of it comes down to self-esteem, right?
Yeah.
And you have to use the tools that you have to kind of overcome those self-doubts and that negative talk, um, to just go out there and, yeah, like you said, do your thing. Because if you look at this business as, how can I provide value to somebody with my live stream, right? Then it's not so much about, well, do I look good? Do I sound good? Does my background look good? No, that none of that stuff matters, because if you are providing knowledge, entertainment, or both to people, that is meaningful, that in and of itself is a good thing. And so if you can focus on that and say, look, I'll work on the other stuff later, but what I'm going to try to do right now is just get this valuable content out to people that can use it and that might need it.
Mm-hmm.
If you focus on that, sometimes that can help a lot,
Yeah.
in kind of getting over a lot of the self-doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so you guys ready for point number two? Here it comes. Step two, have good audio, Sam.
Okay. I'm going to demonstrate something here. So right now I should sound pretty good. Okay. Now I bet I sound a little bit farther away, a little bit echoey, right? Not
Yep.
as good quality audio. And then hopefully now I sound like I did before, right?
Yes.
Um, all I did was in Zoom. I have a Blue Yeti microphone.
Mm-hmm.
You can see it here, yeah. Um, and I also have a microphone on my webcam, which is in front of me, a little ways away. I just switched the webcams and or the microphones, and you could see which one had better sound.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes it's the hardware that you have that will make a difference. But when it comes to having good audio, the best thing that you can do is to have a dedicated microphone, whether that is a USB one like Joanne and I have, or whether that is even just a simple headset that has a noise canceling microphone, right? When I first started, I had like a $20 Logitech headset that I had used in a call center
Mm-hmm.
at the time, and 8 hours a day, like, and I was like, if it's good enough for a call center, it's probably good enough for streaming, right? And so I used it and it was great. So don't rely on your laptop's built-in microphone, right? Because that's where they skimp when they are trying to save money, right? Is on the camera and the microphone.
Mm-hmm.
But even if you have a terrible blurry looking image, but you've got crisp audio, people will stay. So you want to have a decent microphone, but don't break the bank. You also want to set yourself up in a situation where you're not going to have a lot of background noise, right? Because if you've got a TV on in the background, or you've got people running around, or somebody's on the phone having a conversation and you can hear it, that's not going to make for a good live stream, right? People are
Mm-hmm.
going to bounce out of that. So you have to think about your environment and the time at which you're doing your live stream, and make sure that you can do it at a time where you have quiet, right? Now, sometimes things will happen, right? Sometimes there's construction outside and you didn't know it was going to happen, right? Or all of a sudden your neighbor decides they're going to cut down their tree, right? And there's, a chainsaw in the background. Then you have to just evaluate, how bad is this? Is it distracting, right? But reduce as much as you can any background noise, um, and have a dedicated microphone of some kind. Those two things alone will make sure that you have good audio. And then the third thing really is make sure that your internet connection is stable. Because even if you have a quiet place and you have a good microphone, if you have an internet connection that's really slow or choppy, if you're trying to stream something live, you might sound good on your own. And if you were recording it, you might sound good. But if your internet is garbling it, or it's all like stuttery and choppy, it's not going to sound good. People aren't going to stay. So really, those are the three things that you want to focus on most when it comes to audio.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
if you don't have good audio, I mean, if you don't have good audio for live streaming, you're probably not going to have good audio as well for your tutoring. And so that's something
Right.
just to kind of take. I mean, it's not 100% like needed, like the day one that you go live, that you have good
Right.
audio, but you want to take that in consideration because you want to have a good experience for the client that you're working with. So
Mhm.
if we think about, though, improving that internet connection, what are some things that people can do to improve that internet connection? Because that's going to be super important for their tutoring as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's really the two things that you want to consider when having a solid internet connection. The first one is to identify what your internet speeds are and whether they are adequate for the job you're doing. So Zoom is highly optimized and does not take a lot of internet power. But if you want to be able to do a high definition video call like we're doing right now, you want to have crisp, clear audio, you don't want stuttering, you're going to need at least a upload speed of, I think they recommend 1 to 2 gigabits or megabits, sorry, 1 to 2 megabits per second. Now, that's fairly attainable for most people. But one of the things that happened to one of our friends was she had DSL internet. She called her, she looked at her download speeds and was like, well, my download speed should be really good. Like, why am I can see them just fine and hear them just fine. Why are my things always choppy? And I said, well, what's your upload speed? And she said, what's upload speed? And I said, well, call your internet provider and ask them and tell them what you need to do. And in her case, she simply called them and said, hey, I need to run Zoom calls. And they said, oh, well, we can increase your upload speed that will make it fast enough for you to have a good experience, right? And in her case, she was fortunate because they had the ability to do that, but they had a really low upload speed because most people don't need it. If all
Mm,
you're doing is streaming Netflix, you don't need to worry about uploading data. You're downloading, right?
sure.
So check your internet speeds and make sure that it is fast enough to be able to do that. Now, most streaming services recommend somewhere between 4 to 5 megabits per second upload speed. So typically, most internet service providers in the United States will have something like 25 or 20 or 25 megabits per second download.
Hmm.
But check with your internet provider to see. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is, whenever possible, have a hardwired connection to your router. So what that means is you take an Ethernet cable, um, and you can look those up. Those are, a dime a dozen. Yeah, it looks a little bit like a phone line cable for anybody that
Hmm.
still has a phone. And it plugs from your computer into your modem or router. And what that does is that sends the signal directly across that wire instead of over the air through Wi-Fi. Okay. And so lots of stuff can get in the way on Wi-Fi, but nothing's getting in the way of that signal. So that gives you typically the most stable internet connection possible. Um, it might not necessarily be any faster than your Wi-Fi. Some people have really fast Wi-Fi, and that's awesome. But there's nothing that's going to get in the way of the signal passing from the modem to your computer, right?
So what you're saying is when my kids are they're on TikTok and Snapchat and they're watching something on Netflix with their kids, that's not going to get in the way of either my live streaming or my tutoring.
It could, but you will have a much better chance of having the stable internet and having the priority
Hmm.
traffic, meaning that your router is going to give you the bandwidth first because you're on a wired connection.
Hmm.
And so, but you brought up a good point, and that's kind of a third tip is if you have a limited bandwidth, right? Try to see if you can get everybody else in the house to minimize their use of, especially streaming, while you are doing that. Now, if they're on Netflix, whatever, that may be okay because that's mostly just download speed. But where you can run into issues is if somebody else is, let's say they're doing Xbox, right, live, and they are on a multiplayer game and they're chatting with somebody, that's going to be pushing data out, and that could interrupt your thing. So yeah, try to ask anybody who's in the house, hey, for this 20 minutes, half hour, whatever, can you guys maybe just not stream or just take it easy, just so that I can have the best experience possible? Sometimes it's as simple as that.
Yeah. Except for the arguing that happens with, the people that you're asking.
Yep.
But,
Yep.
oh,
But
awesome.
mom. Yeah. Yep.
For sure. All right, you guys. And point number 3, and we actually have had we've had you guys commenting inside of here. We've had Matt commenting, awesome. We've had Ramona commenting. She liked it when I showed on up my microphone. Like, yep, I've got the microphone too as well over here. But number 3 is really important, you guys, because at the end of the day, the experience isn't about you. The experience is about the people that are there that are watching you. Oh, tell us all about engaging with your audience.
Yeah. So when you do a live stream as opposed to a recorded content, right? If you're doing it live, the goal is that you have an audience and that they are interacting with you and that they are posting questions in the chat. And so you will have seen Joanne will pause and she will address the people in the chat. She'll say hi, she'll read some of the comments, right? That's what you do on a live stream because it's more than just a presentation, right? If you're going live, the goal is to be able to interact with your audience. So in a way that kind of takes pressure off of you because then you could be like, oh cool, hey, I see. And Matt actually on YouTube mentioned this, right? He said for teachers we're not required to be perfect for everyone, just those that feel we are fit for them individually, right? And so you can kind of extrapolate that even more to say, I don't need to be perfect on a live stream because I'm not expected to be. People know that it's live. People know that stuff is going to happen, right? And so, if something happens, like you can't get your overlay to line up, what do? You talk to the audience. You say, hey, this isn't working the way I wanted it to. No big deal. We're just going to, not focus on this. And hey, let's get back into the content, right?
Right.
And if you have a friend or family member that shows up, you just say, hey, thanks so much for jumping in. I'm so excited to see you here. Let's chat, post any questions that you have, right? It's about that give and take, because what you're doing is you're creating an interactive experience, almost as if you were having a conversation with a friend at a coffee shop or wherever, right? And that's why live streaming is so powerful. When you can do that and you build that connection, that's when a lot of the other objections start to fade away, because they're like, wow, I like that person. I want to work with them. And then they've already convinced themselves they're going to work with you. Now they're just trying to figure out logistically how to make it happen.
Right. Right. And that's really the big thing here, right? Because I know so many, every single day, I get this at least 20 times a day. How do I get online tutoring students? And, it comes down to like really putting those basic pieces in place, knowing who you want to tutor, figuring out who is the audience that you want following you so that you can speak in a way that they can hear you. And then having a way to be able to engage with them online so that they know that you're going to be the right fit for them, and they're pushing that button that they want to set up that consultation. A lot of people think, oh, well, if I just send them to my website, they're just going to push that button to get a free assessment or get a free consultation. And it might happen that way if you're lucky, but we want to stop we don't want to be playing with the game of luck. We want to be playing with the game of, I'm putting these pieces into practice so that I can repeat this over and over again. If I'm just waiting on luck to help me out, I might get some students here and there, but I'm not going to have an online tutoring business that I can keep running that will allow people to have that opportunity to be able to get to know me, trust me, like me, and want to then eventually hire me. And so we've got Eric Branner over in Facebook. Thanks for joining us, Eric. Glad that you're here. We've got Ann Mitchell. Beth is on like every platform. I love it. And I love this. So Matt Mankin said, hey, there are 7 billion plus people out there in the world. You're going to connect with someone. Right? And I think that's so cool. Like I've watched some people on their live streams that I thought, this will be interesting. Let's see how they do this. And it's like their natural personality shows on up. And I'm like, gosh, I really like them. I'd hire them.
Yeah. And think about this too, to illustrate that point, right? We were talking about, my wife working for a company that had students in China. China is the most populous country in the world. I think India might be the second, right? Both of them are having huge increases in the amount of people that are online now, right? China is having a huge economic boom, and a lot of the people are coming into middle class. They have internet connections. They are wanting to better themselves, and they are utilizing the knowledge of tutors all around the world to mostly for their children, right? But better themselves or their children's lives through online means, right? And so think about that. The 2 most populous countries in the world are part of this digital revolution, right? Now, that's not to say that you're necessarily going to focus there or whatever, but the point is that there are an infinite amount of people that could potentially need your services. And how are you going to differentiate, and how are you going to let people know who you are when there's that many people? You might be able to spend a lot of money on advertising, but people can outspend you. So, live streaming is the way to do that.
There are just 2 ways that you really can go about it. You can either spend a lot of money or spend a lot of time.
Yep.
Okay, you're going to have to give up one or the other. Like there's no way around it, right? It's one or the other. And honestly, at the beginning, a lot of us don't have a lot of money to be able to spend, right? And so being able to utilize some of these free tools and resources will really help you. But as I said before, a lot of tutors, they're not going to take advantage of a platform like this and let their voice be heard. They allow everything else to get in the way of why they can't do it. So this actually gives you an advantage to being able to be seen and heard in a much different way, which I love. Very cool. All right. So we know that we want to deliver the point. We want to be ourselves, okay? We want to have good audio. We want to engage with our audience. And this last point that we're going to be sharing with you guys is so incredible. All right. Now, I know that some of you guys already got a little sneak peek at this, but this last point, it is really, really cool because you want people that are able to come to your live stream. Now, when I started doing live streams, I wasn't always like on time. And I think that's kind of important. Like if you say you're going to start on time, you need to start on time. Right. And, or I would get started and then this would happen. Oh my gosh. The tech wouldn't work for me. I'd be like, oh crud. Like I'm not able to actually push start. Like it won't work. Like the button doesn't work. Like there's something wrong. Like, oh my gosh, what the heck is happening here? And it was driving me up a wall, you guys. It was absolutely driving me crazy. And it's so annoying to be able to have these kinds of things happening. And I was chatting with Sam about this problem. And then he mentioned, hey, Ashley and I, we do this countdown timer. And I was like, oh, okay. Now, honestly, like before that point, I was able to use the system like OBS, and thought, this is kind of like impossible to kind of put all these pieces together. But Sam sat down with me. He showed me how to use OBS. He'd actually been on here doing some live trainings with us. And, I was able to actually just kind of sit down and just take a look at, okay, I understand how this all lays out and be able to put that into practice. And so that is when, you guys, this one thing solves the problem of not starting on time and allows you to now have an audience who's there with you on time as well. And that is to create. All right, so tell us about the custom countdown timer, Sam.
Yep. So I learned about this mostly through watching people streaming video games on Twitch, because Twitch is a service owned by Amazon, specifically designed to allow people to watch live video game streaming, right? And believe it or not, there's a lot of money that can be made on that service. But what they were saying, what everybody said is the key is that you have to have consistency and people have to know when you're going live, right? So we weren't doing these big, video game streams on Twitch, but I'm like, well, okay, how does live stream? I looked at live streaming on Facebook, right? And I'm like, how does this work? And one of the things I noticed was whenever, say, Joanne would go live, I would get a notification. I would jump on, and they're already 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes into the live stream, right? Now, had they been sitting and kind of just being like, hey, what's up, for 2 or 3 minutes, that's okay, right? Because they're waiting. They know that people are going to be jumping in. But for some people, they might just be like, no way, get to the point. I don't want to wait here. And other people, if they do get to the point and they're 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes late, it's like, oh, shoot, what did I miss, right? So what we did was we decided, all right, we're going to start our live stream 5 minutes, 10 minutes early. 10 minutes is probably a good spot. And I would literally just use the tools that we had in OBS. We would have a little screen. I have a little, literally just like a video file that is a 10-minute countdown timer, right? And I would just put those on with a little bit of music, and then I would say, we're going live in about 10 minutes. Welcome, come in, introduce yourselves in the chat. A lot of the time I would have a question that I would want them to answer, right? And so what it did was it let people know this is going to start at this time. The live stream starts and it gives them a notification. And when they jump in, they see, oh, it's going to be starting in 6 minutes. Okay, cool. I didn't miss anything. I don't have to be actively engaged right now because I know it's not started yet, but I can get myself to a position where maybe, you know, I'll go into the bedroom and I'll put my headphones on and I can sit down and get ready to watch this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the key, right? Is that presumably you have already promoted your live stream. You've already let people know that it's happening, but that you don't want people to feel like they missed out and then either not join or get frustrated because they missed something. And so the countdown timer is great for that because it solves both of those issues.
Yeah, absolutely. So you just had like a file that was that you had gotten.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you get like a countdown file?
Yep. So one of the things that you can do, and again, I've used a lot of assets that were built for gaming streamers, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they can be used for a lot of different things. So I went to a website called nerdordie.com, and I'll put it in both the Facebook and the YouTube chat. They create assets specifically for streamers, typically geared toward game streaming, but one of those packs had a countdown timer.
Mm-hmm.
And typically, the structure of a live stream that a lot of those streamers use that I like is you start with something in the beginning, right? A countdown timer, a starting soon screen. Then you'll have your main scene. And then you might have either a be right back if you know if you plan to have a break, or and if it's going to go long, or at the very end you might thank your audience and then have an end screen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so these companies have built assets specifically to have that, right? So I just grabbed one of those, nerdordie.com, and I plugged it into OBS and it worked.
Mm-hmm.
So it's cool because you don't have to think, oh, I don't want to get those because those are built for game streamers, and I'm not streaming video games. A lot of the stuff you may not use, but you might find that there are some cool things in there that you might actually be able to use.
Sure. And you guys, it can be even simple. If you're not using OBS or a system like that, it's just a matter of you're using Zoom. Just share your screen with the
Mm-hmm.
countdown timer taking up the screen, and then unshare your screen, and
Mm-hmm.
boom, there you are. You can be able to
Right.
get started. So, the tech can be as complicated or as uncomplicated as you want it to be. And so, did you
Mm-hmm.
notice a higher rate of people than joining you on time when you did that?
Yeah, totally. Because again, we mostly did it through Facebook, right? And Facebook will push out a notification, but they don't always do it right away. And so, yeah, what we noticed was, and particularly it was because I would monitor all of my wife's streams, right? Because I was helping her set them up, so I wanted to make sure
Mm-hmm.
they looked good and sounded good. And so I would notice that she would go live, and I might not get a Facebook notification for 2, 3, 4 minutes. And so I was thinking about that. And I was like, yeah, well, like a lot of other people, they're not even going to know that you're live until they get that notification. And so once we started that delay process, then yeah, once she kind of switched over to her main point, most of the people were already there. And
Right.
you might have some people jump in and out after that, but you have at least a core group that is there. They're waiting for your content, and those are people that you'll then be able to interact with on your stream. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. Now, Veronica Atkins has a great question here. She says, what do you say on a live stream? What are topic ideas? And I'm so glad that you asked that question, Veronica. We are going to be diving a little bit deeper on into that in our webinar that we're going to do next week, and spend a little bit more time specifically on that aspect for you, because it is good to be able to come up with a strategy of, you don't just turn on the camera, right? Like, you need to have topics you're going to talk about. And
Mm-hmm.
here's what I find that tutors make the biggest mistake of. They think they need to do like a sample session of tutoring on their live stream or on their YouTube videos. And at the end of the day, you guys, I don't know about you, but that's kind of boring. So if you can't present that kind of stuff in an exciting way, you're not going to be able to grab people the way that you want to or think. So you got to think about who has the credit card, right? When I'm doing the tutoring, I'm tutoring to the student that's in front of me. But when I'm thinking about doing these live streams, I have to be thinking about the person with the credit card and what are the things that they're struggling with, right? So that makes it a little bit difficult. People are like, well, who do I create content for? You create content for the people that have the credit card. So for me, it's the parents. So what are the things that they are struggling with, right? They are currently struggling, and specifically, what are they struggling with right before, that moment before they want to hire somebody? And if you can create content around that idea, you are going to have gold in your pocket. So they're already buying books, and they're already tuning on into different apps that they're already utilizing and trying. Maybe they've bought some programs. What are they? Well, you can do some. You can do reviews of those kinds of tools, and you can play with the keywords of those tools as well. The other things they're struggling with, like, how do I handle my child who just wants to fight with me all of the time when I want to be able to help? Yeah, yeah, because you homeschool your kids. So it gets frustrating, doesn't it? When your kids are just fighting with you over and over and over again when you're trying to help them, and they're like, no. And so the people that don't homeschool, this is what the kids say. They say, my teacher didn't teach it that way. They get really snotty about it. It's like, and I would like look at my kids when they say things like that. I'd be like, look, you know what mom does, right? Like, when it comes to reading, you know, mom can help because, but they haven't accepted you as teacher. But, you know, those are the kinds of things that are most important to parents. So if we can tap on into that. The other thing, like, for me, I teach reading, right? So motivating kids to read. Like, how do you get them to pick up a book, right? Like, that's a really big piece of it. So think about your audience and that ideal client, and what are the things that they are specifically struggling with, because that's how you're going to get them to hear you.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's when you can tap into the anxiety that somebody is feeling, and you can offer a bit of a solution or something that will maybe help reduce that anxiety, they will pay you for that. Because if you think about it, one, they're already willing to spend the money. You just want them to spend it with you. But you have to give them a reason to do it, right? You have to provide them with value. So, you know, one of the things that we did was, like, when you get out there and you are presenting these topics, you're giving them valuable information that they can use, but also what you're doing is you're showing and so they can see your face, they can hear your voice, they can connect with your personality, and they might be like, wow, he or she really knows what they're talking about. I think they're great. My kid even stopped to watch for 2 minutes, you know, because they thought they were cool. Maybe I don't have to do this because I don't want to. Maybe I can hire them to do it, right? It's, they have a problem, you have a solution, right? Give me the money instead of Sylvan Learning Center, or instead of that book that you don't have the time to read anyway. And that, how are you, and then you're going to have to go and do a million things just to get the resources. Like, no, let me do this for you and take that anxiety off your plate. That adds value. And that also really helps when there's to overcome the money objection before it ever surfaces, right? Because they already like you.
Yes. I love it. I love it. It all makes a big difference, you guys. It really, really does. It's extremely pivotal to being able to create that that differentiation between you and them. And even the kids can even kind of meet you beforehand, like without ever having to go like live, like on there, and that makes a big difference. The other thing you can think about is even having clients come on the line with you for a live stream, right? Like grab 3 or 4 parents, and now you've got video that you can repurpose as testimonials and all of that without having to fight for the testimonials, because sometimes people are like, they're really hesitant to leave a testimonial, not because you're not good, but because they don't know what to say, or they feel like they don't want to say the wrong thing, or you know, it's just
like,
kind of
I don't know,
touchy.
she's good and stuff, like, but well, and that's, you know, to that point, like, the other thing that you can do sometimes that can be really valuable is to address some of the objections that you might be hearing when it comes to online tutoring. So, you know, oh, I just don't know if my kid will connect with the tutor online. Well, that's a very valid objection, and that's a fear that a lot of parents have, right? And what that is saying is, I actually have anxiety that I will be paying you money and I won't be getting enough value where I might if I paid a in-person tutor. And so when you can then go on and say, well, hey, here are some of the benefits. You don't have to have somebody in your house. You don't have to bring the kid to somebody else's house, right? They can be comfortable in their home. We can do cool, fun, and exciting things just like we could in a live session. But even better, if I need to improvise and grab something really quick, well, I can just do it because I'm on the computer with the internet, where I can't if I'm live, right? So those are other topics that you can do as a live stream format, um, to say, hey, I understand you have these objections. These are really good questions to ask. Let's talk about them, right? And if you can promote it ahead of time and you can get some potential clients or even existing clients to come into the chat and say, hey, by the way, can you let me know what some of your anxieties were and maybe what some of your continuing anxieties are? Then you have engagement.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And that's huge. So think about that too for topics, not
And
to
it's
spoil the
amazing the things that
webinar.
your clients will say, like in the stream, will actually help to sell your services, because they're just interacting and engaging, right? But they're saying great things about you as well. So if you want to write great things about me inside of the chat, you guys, go ahead. Anytime. I'll never stop you guys. Which is great. And I think a lot of parents, like right now, their biggest fear is my kids on the computer so much. Like, I don't want them on the computer even more. And so it's like, because of coronavirus, you can explain the difference between how the learning looks with their schooling versus how the learning would look with you one-on-one. Because the learning with the school right now, you guys, let's just be honest with it, is bad. And I'm sorry, all of you teachers that are watching this, you might be doing a really great job at it.
Yeah,
But from my own, it's not your
Yeah.
fault. You were thrown into this. You were completely 100% thrown into this. You didn't ask for it, and nobody trained you in how to do it. Right? It was just kind of like, boom, here you go. This is the new situation as of like Monday, and so how can you expect there to be an amazing experience on the other side when that happens, right? And so the parents are thinking, well, if it's this bad with their teacher that I respect and admire, how could it be any better with somebody else, right? But what they don't know is we know what we're doing here. We've been doing this for years, or we've been doing this for a couple months. It wasn't like we were thrown into it. We chose it. We wanted to do it. We wanted to do the online tutoring. And so we then took the time to be able to learn how to do certain things so things would work well on our side. Whereas the parents are, some of the teachers are kind of fighting with the school system. Like, look, I didn't sign up for this. I don't want to do this. And so then they're only putting in half of the work that they normally would, because they're like, you know what? This is just as what our situation is. And it's not about like, this isn't always going to be my situation. So we got some difficult things that are going on there with the entire education system. And why not bring up current events like that on your live stream, right? When you bring in current events, when you bring in things that are happening in the real world, when people just, they can really like start to see you as a person. And that's really the entire goal of this whole thing. So, you know what, you guys, if you just be yourself, you have good audio, you engage with your audience, and you create a countdown timer so that people know when you are going to be live, you're off to a great start with live streaming. And live streaming is going to be one of those things that you need to continue to learn about and get better at. And I promise you, you guys, if you take the time to be able to learn some of these things, you're going to be better for it. So definitely stay tuned. We're going to be letting you know about the webinar very, very soon. So you know exactly how to sign up for that, and you get to learn more about live streaming. And also next week, Ashley Dimercurio, Sam's wife, is going to be joining us, and she's going to be sharing about her experience with live streaming as well, and give you guys some amazing tips. So we've got more live streaming stuff to come. My Monday video is going to be live streaming. It's all about live streaming, guys. Live streaming, live streaming, live streaming. So do you want to keep learning? You going to join us? Type a big fat yes inside of there. And until then, thanks you guys for being able to join us today, and we'll see you all next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.